everyone. Today I'm here with Matt Elenjickal, founder and CEO of leading supply chain visibility platform FourKites. Last week, FourKites announced its $100 million Series D growth financing. Congratulations, Matt. Really exciting stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
But what's most interesting to me and what I want to focus on today are the strategic investors that play a leading role in this round. Qualcomm Ventures, Volvo Group, Zebra Technologies, and Thomas H. Lee Partners. These are investors that are looking to actively collaborate with FourKites to build the next generation of digital supply chains, and I'm thrilled to welcome them here with us today. So we have Dan Tram, Carlos Cochran, and we also have Tony Palchik, Mike Kazmarek, and obviously Matt, the founder and CEO of FourKites. So welcome, everyone. Let's start by going around and telling us who you are, what you do, and what does strategic partnerships in a broad sense mean to you? So Carlos, we're going to start with you.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Congrats, Matt, once again. We're super excited to join the train and hoping to work with you over the next several years and to continue to build a wonderful company. I'm Carlos Cochran. I'm a Qualcomm VP and I'm a managing director at Qualcomm Ventures. I currently run the Americas team. We have investment professionals, US and LATAM. We also have business development and operations functions that allows us to not only improve our operations, of course, but it strengthened the ties with the mothership, Qualcomm. So we have folks in the team who look for opportunities and help us navigate the Qualcomm business units for collaboration opportunities and effectively become brokers for how do we strengthen the ties between the companies we invest in and Qualcomm. And this could be technology partnerships, they could be go-to-market partnerships, they could be all of the above, right? Qualcomm Ventures is the strategic investment arm, the VC arm of Qualcomm Incorporated, and we basically think and act like a financial investor. So we're looking for great investment opportunities, but at the same time, we focus our activities and invest in companies that are relevant to us and provide an opportunity for us to add value, as well as an opportunity for us to collaborate with the companies and hopefully bring better solutions to the market, therefore increasing their opportunities of success.
I always love that word, collaboration. What does strategic partnerships, maybe in one word, what does that mean to you, Carlos?
It means win-win. It means that we find opportunities where both parties get to gain from the relationship. We contribute to their success and vice versa. So again, successful investments for us are not only investments that will bring solid and exciting financial returns, but will also bring strategic returns. And in the partnership sense here, we're looking, for example, in the case of FourKites, to work with them and identify opportunities to bring lower cost, easier to implement IoT solutions, which is a linchpin of sort of digital transformation. So
right.
The whole IoT is creating this new breed of companies, like enabling new breed of companies like FourKites is. And we want to work with them, collaborate with them, and again, identify solutions that are better, easier to implement, therefore, in a way, increasing our reach to the market, but as importantly for FourKites, making their flywheel turn faster because they will have more connectivity points and they'll be able to, their solution will have a stronger value to their markets, to their customers.
Great. Thank you so much, Carlos. Tony.
Hi.
Welcome. Tell us who you are and what you do and what does strategic partnerships mean to you at Zebra?
So Tony Palchik, I'm with Zebra Ventures, and we're the corporate venture capital arm of Zebra Technologies. And funny, I could repeat a lot of the stuff that Carlos said. Carlos and I have known each other for years. So all the things that he said is what we're doing. We're looking for strategic value, but we're also looking for financial value. So how do we help FourKites to grow and expand and serve customers? And how do we leverage some of their technology within Zebra so we can serve our customers better? The great thing about FourKites is that they have the same customer set basically as Zebra. So there's almost 100% overlap in terms of customers and collaboration. There's a lot of collaboration opportunities, right now we're already a customer of FourKites. I love that they're based in Chicago, by the way. I'm a Chicago guy. I was looking for, it's great to get a Chicago investment. I was the chairman of the Illinois Venture Capital Association, and I've known about Matt and FourKites for years. So this was an opportune time for Zebra to participate. I look at the other members of the investment syndicate. So you got Carlos, who I've known for, I don't know, probably 10 years, somewhere around there. You
More
got
like
Dan,
15, 17.
15? Oh, man, you're aging me. You're aging me. But you also have Michael and T.H. Lee, and Dan in the Volvo Group. You've got a great syndicate, and I already knew their existing investors and their board members. So it's about the team. It's about the people. I think we've got a great group of collaborative people that bring different skills and different experiences and knowledge to the team. So when you say collaboration, it's not just Zebra and FourKites, it's Zebra and Qualcomm and Volvo and T.H. Lee. So hopefully you can tell I'm super excited about this investment and Matt's leadership and Matt's, I think of Matt collaborative, agile, visionary, and it's great to invest in a company with a guy like Matt at the helm.
That is amazing. And, I can just understand, and we haven't even got through everybody yet, how you have all come together and what this is going to mean for the industry. Michael, over to you. Tell us who you are, what you do. What does strategic partnerships mean to you?
Yeah, Mike Kazmarek, a partner at Thomas H. Lee Partners. THL is a Boston-based private equity firm, and we invest in a range of industries: healthcare, financial services, and technology. Within our technology practice, I help lead that technology effort at the firm. And within technology, automation is one of our key areas of focus for us. And last year in 2020, we actually went out and raised private equity's first ever automation fund. So we raised about $1 billion of capital focused specifically on automation-oriented investment opportunities, where FourKites fits squarely in the middle of that from a target perspective. And I as Carlos and Tony said, we're thrilled to be a part of this group as well. Just honored to be here with Dan at Volvo, Tony at Zebra, Carlos obviously at Qualcomm, and obviously to be partners with Matt and what he's doing. I think for us, partnership for us is where we can go into a transaction and add more than just capital. What I don't have relative to my colleagues and partners here is a operating group that we can kind of bring into the fold. But what we do have is a lot of experience scaling companies and helping those companies, kind of go from A to B, while at the same time bending that growth curve and bringing to bear our resources, whether it's our operating team or the relationships that we have within our other portfolio companies or otherwise, to help our businesses scale and grow at an accelerated rate. And we're excited to be at the table, with this group and really help Matt scale the business, and very excited for what the future holds. And as Tony said, I think thrilled to be partners with Matt and what he's doing from a visionary perspective in the role that he, in the company that he's frankly built and continues to grow.
Well, the respect already that we've seen in this conversation and the excitement and the passion. I mean, this is just amazing. I love the energy, and we're not in the same room, but even just virtually, I can feel it coming through all of your screens. So Dan, welcome. Tell us who you are and what you do, and what does strategic partnerships mean to you?
Thanks, Sarah. Dan Tram, Investment Director at Volvo Group Venture Capital. And I help the organization with our venture capital investments in North America. And Volvo Group is one of the world's largest truck manufacturers, and we do trucks, buses, and construction equipment. So what partnerships means to me? Well, to summarize what a lot of people have said, and I agree with that as well, is collaboration. And it's important to emphasize that Volvo Group has many different partnerships at different scales and different levels. But for Volvo Group Venture Capital, when we invest in a company, I see it as an investment partner. But we believe what the company has built, how they're positioned in the market, and where they're going. And when we invest in a company, we also hope to work together with that company to bring new products and services to the market that will help our customers and their customers as well. And of course, FourKites fit that bill perfectly.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dan. Matt, last but absolutely not least, as you can see from this conversation so far, they have a lot to say about you. So Tell us who you are and what you do. I mean, we kind of already know, but what does strategic partnerships really mean to you?
Absolutely. So before I get there, first of all, thank you so much, Sarah, for hosting, and Mike, Dan, Tony, and Carlos for your partnership. Super excited and looking forward to all the cool and fun things that we can do together. So for us as a company, strategic partnership is all about bringing together a group of people that are aligned around a common vision. And for us, it's all about disrupting the supply chain management space. And there are two themes that we truly care about, within FourKites. And I think you heard about those two themes already: collaboration, automation, and I really mean it. And if you want to understand the importance of those two themes, you just have to look for the past, what happened in the last 18 months, right? The disruption in the supply chain space due to COVID. In the last 1 week, what happened, right, at the Suez Canal crisis. So the supply chains are fragile, and we have to do something, right, to really move the industry forward. And we have a group of investors that have come together to really make that happen. And that's what partnership and collaboration is all about for us.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. And so we're going to start off the conversation with you. I want to talk about why this round, why these investors, right? So FourKites created the supply chain visibility category back in 2014. You've since grown a lot. I mean, you're over 500 customers, touching around half of the Fortune 500 companies, tracking all modes, all geographies. And so in talking about this latest round of funding, you've called it a bigger, bolder vision for the future of digital supply chains. What are you looking to accomplish in this next stage of FourKites growth? And how will you be leveraging these strategic investors to help you achieve those goals?
Absolutely. So when you think about the industry, a lot of changes are happening. There was an article that came out this morning where we talk about not just in time, but it's a just in case, right? Because people don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know if you guys read that article. Another theme that we hear about in the industry is it's not just about supply chain, it's about demand chain, right? Supply is not what is driving the industry forward. It is the demand and what is happening at the demand stage, right? So a lot of things happening. And like I said, for us, our vision is anchored around two different things: automation and collaboration. And all these investors that that we have assembled here, they are bringing something unique to the table. So you heard from Mike about automation, right? Their automation fund. So they bring unique expertise through their other supply chain investments, like material handling systems, and also best practices from other automation startups. You heard from Dan around what he's bringing to the table in terms of how we are moving to an era where trucks are becoming more digital, right? There is a lot more data being generated, like engine diagnostics, connected trucks, connected shippers. How can you use all that data to really accelerate our goal to build a more sustainable ecosystem? How can we really connect the shippers and trucking companies to really bring a more autonomous environment, right? These are all the things that we can really facilitate because we have a lot of data and they have a lot of data. Talk about Qualcomm. You heard from Carlos about advancements in technology that can really accelerate the digital transformation. How can we bring the cost of devices down, right? The chip to cloud concept. These are all the things that we are super excited about. And when you think about Zebra, the end-to-end vision of FourKites, where we want to provide visibility right from what is happening in the store to all the way to what is happening at a raw material manufacturer, and bringing visibility from yard, warehouse, retail scanners, point of sale systems, the warehouse readers, all these things together. So my point is to create that supply chain of the future, the end-to-end supply chain where everybody knows what is happening any given time. You cannot do it alone. You need to bring all these parties together. Yes. And that is what we are driving towards at FourKites.
Amazing. And I'm so glad that you explained your vision of end-to-end visibility, because we hear this all the time, right? We hear visibility, we hear end-to-end, and people do have different explanations. So thank you very much for sharing with us what that vision for end-to-end visibility at FourKites looks like for the industry. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you because Thomas H. Lee Partners, you are the lead investor in this round, and you'll also be taking a seat on the FourKites board. So why don't you tell us about why this was such a compelling investment opportunity for you?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. One is just the market leadership position that Matt and his team have built is just spectacular. As we went out and spoke with a number of their customers or, companies in the ecosystem, just the reviews and the feedback we got from what Matt has built from a technology perspective, a software perspective, and frankly, his team was just it was just very, very positive to a point where, this became kind of an obvious investment. Some of the feedback we heard, we hadn't heard that positive feedback in many other situations, candidly. So I think one is the market position and technology that they've developed. I think the other dynamic is really the market dynamic that Matt touched on. Matt used the word, they're disrupting the supply chain. I would actually phrase it, not to disagree with Matt, but frame it a little differently, which is they're facilitating the evolution of the supply chain, which is, the supply chain is becoming ever more complex and ever more digital. What used to be a very manually oriented process, and Dan can probably talk about still how manual it is at Volvo as an example, or Carlos at Qualcomm or Zebra, even for that matter. What used to be a very manual process, everything is moving to be digital. And as that digital transformation continues, solutions like supply chain visibility move from being a nice to have to being a must have. And as you look at that evolution and Matt and his team's ability to be at the front and center of that, that is a very, very exciting place to be from an investment perspective. And I think we're thrilled to kind of help them and support them on that journey. But I think you're going to continue to see an evolution of this being just front of mind for CEOs, CTOs, CFOs as they think about their business continuity. And I think that's a very important place to be, and as we continue to build the company with Matt. But also, again, you're more supporting that evolution versus being a disruptor in the industry necessarily. So again, something that we see a lot of positive macro tailwinds around, and again, excited to be a part of the journey.
Facilitation over disruption. I love that analogy. Thank you so much, Mike. Dan, same question for you. I want to bring you into this conversation. Why was it important for Volvo to be in this round?
Yeah, similar to Mike. I've looked at the supply chain visibility industry for quite some time. And the data points that we've seen suggest that supply chain visibility is becoming a standard for the reasons that Mike mentioned. And also, FourKites has positioned themselves as a market leader in a space with a few players. And why we wanted to invest is because we like where the company is going and what they have built. And we also see that they can help us with our strategic directions. And that is to bring new products and services to our customers and building a more sustainable in-house logistics system. And we think that FourKites can help with both of those points.
Amazing. Talk about win-win. When you're both talking about why it was important for you to be a part of this round, it's really about what you can bring to the table and also what FourKites is bringing to the table. And I love to hear all of that because, we talk about collaboration, but I think it's also important to talk about how you're able to work together and fill in some of the gaps that everybody has. So, of course, I asked Matt earlier about end-to-end visibility, but I want to hear from the rest of you because, again, this is something we hear about over and over and over again. There's different examples out there in the market. So Tony and Carlos, Tony, maybe I'll start with you. What does end-to-end visibility mean to you? And how is FourKites playing a role in achieving that future state?
So if you think about what Zebra does, so we're a leader in barcode scanning, barcode printing, and ruggedized mobile computers. So think about a package being shipped from an e-commerce player, and we're all getting them these days. And when they put a label on it in that facility, there's a chance that it's printed with a Zebra label printer, and it's a Zebra label. It goes on and it gets scanned before it goes on the truck. It gets on the truck, and then it goes to another warehouse and another warehouse, and eventually it arrives at your house where it's getting scanned throughout that process, and it gets scanned when it gets dropped off to your house, and it probably has, some kind of GPS on it where you know when the package was delivered, where it was delivered, who delivered it. So all that tracking. Well, Zebra devices are involved in tracking from the beginning to the end. And as we learned more and more about FourKites, they're also facilitating a very similar thing. They're tracking the package from first mile to middle mile to last mile. Zebra is really good at tracking things inside a facility. Okay, whether it's through barcodes or through RFID, or even in some cases through some versions of computer vision, let's say. But once it leaves the facility, we don't have the same visibility. FourKites has that. So what we see is the potential fusion of the data of what FourKites offers and captures and what Zebra's capturing. And you go, now we really can track things from beginning to end, inside and outside of facilities. And any one of us as customers, and I just keep thinking of the vaccine being delivered. People want to know when it's going to arrive, who's got it, where it arrives. Well, Zebra and FourKites are a part of that. And I think of pretty much everything being shipped, people want to know when they're going to get something, and they want to know where it is in transit. And FourKites enables our customers to be able to have that information at their fingertips. So I think the combination of Zebra and FourKites is a great combination, and I see it delivering a lot of value for our mutual customers.
How powerful is that? Pooling the data. I mean, we all know that data is surpassing oil right now, and how powerful that can be. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. Carlos.
Great. Actually, Zebra is a large Qualcomm customer. So you can see there's multiple layers of touch points here.
There is.
One of the reasons we're super excited, because a lot of the ruggedized devices that Tony talked about, actually, we provide the components to them. So I actually want to step back a little bit and talk about what visibility really means. Visibility is far beyond location, right? So it's not just the GPS. It's the fact that now with these devices, you can actually track condition. And that's super important. Tony talked about vaccines. You want to track the temperature and make sure that there hasn't been an excursion in temperature, to make sure that when the vaccine gets to the delivery, the vaccination point, right, it's fully functional and ready to go, right? And I think that's one of the again reasons we're super excited here is we're seeing the proliferation of low cost sensors, which will drive more data, right? So it's all, the more data will help Matt, the more data will help us, helps the industry as well. You talked about data being the new oil. This is a perfect application, right? Where you go from let's face it, ERPs were developed maybe in the 1990s, and then came supply chain management tools and whatever, and sort of over the past 10, 20 years, right? This is the evolution of that. This is where you create that data fabric on top of these solutions, and you're not replacing them, you're collaborating with them. Let's use that word again, right? But you have the ability to have multiple sensing points, whether in the yard, in the warehouse, in transit, right? Any geography, any transportation mode. So it's like Disneyland for us, right? It's the ability to basically deploy and leverage, sensors throughout, right? And collect the data from there and build intelligence upon that, dynamic intelligence. Over the past, again, 20 years to a few decades, supply chains have been optimized for cost. And we clearly learned, somebody mentioned demand chain, not supply chain, right? We've seen, tremendous reshuffling, and now they need to be optimized. The supply chains need to be optimized for flexibility. And again, these multiple sensors with the visibility of knowing where it is and what condition it's in, it's like nirvana.
Absolutely. And I know that we're using the word collaboration, but I think that's a lot, but I think that's the only word that we can really use in this. So Matt, I'm going to send it back over to you. You're a longtime industry veteran. You started out as a supply chain consultant working with enterprise software leaders and saw firsthand how siloed their systems were, and that there were some serious blind spots, right? I mean, FourKites has essentially solved those problems through AI and machine learning. And no one's really asking the where's my truck question anymore. So what do you view as the next big question, or maybe problems or challenges that we'll need to solve in the supply chain moving forward?
Absolutely. So I would say there are three problems, or I would call it opportunities in front of us. Like you said, where is my truck? That is a thing of the past, right? We call it dots on the map. That is, it's good for, sales presentations, but beyond that, it's not of much value. The real question, the first one is, what do you do with the data, right? You know where the truck is. How can you take that location data and solve real world business problems? And those problems change by industry, right? The problems that you have in CPG is very different than automotive, very different than high tech. So how can you take the location data and solve real world business problems? By working with customers. That is the first opportunity. The second one is, like Carlos said, how can you expand or go beyond this location? We are already getting data from temperature sensors inside the truck, RFID devices that we tag on a trailer when the trailer is entering a location, dock sensors that will tell us whether the loading or unloading has happened, sensors inside the trailer that gives us a fill rate. So there are so many other data points. Altitude, for example, right? That tells us if the truck is moving at the right altitude, that causes a product disruption. So there's so many data points that we can capture beyond location. And what is the art of the possible by taking all those data points and solve real world business problems? That's the second one. And the third is this, notion around what is inside the truck, or where are my products any given time? And that's again, tying back to the transformation from supply chain to demand chain, right? How real time can you capture demand patterns happening at the stores or online? And how do you communicate that demand patterns across the supply chain upstream? How can you make real-time decisions to meet with the changing expectations, right, from a consumer demand standpoint? And how fast can you recover from a crisis situation? As the canal is open right now, but how is that impacting the downstream, applications, right? Whether it is bullwhip effect. So we will start seeing a lot of downstream impacts at our grocery chains, maybe 2-3 weeks down the line. So how fast can you recover from all these situations? So to answer all this, the fundamental question you have to answer is, where is my product any given time? It could be a finished good, it could be a raw material. Is it in transit? Is it in the yard? Is it in the warehouse? Is it at the store? That kind of granular data, you need that. And that is the third opportunity that we see going forward.
Absolutely. So we're getting it to the product level rather than just at the truck level.
Absolutely.
Like I said, no more is it, where's my truck? It's where is my product in the chain? So Mike, over to you, because you recently launched an automation fund to back companies that enhance productivity across a range of end markets and use cases. From what Matt's talking about, are you seeing these as challenges, and how does FourKites align with your strategy for that fund and your broader vision for the supply chain industry?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, this investment for us is squarely in the middle of fairway for where we're focused. The software, the product, the technology that Matt has developed, and the way he is facilitating the evolution of the broader supply chain ecosystem is very much what we're looking to invest behind. Those types of mega trends. I think the one thing that Matt and Carlos and Tony didn't touch on, as they went through some of their commentary is the word insights. And I think what I think is powerful is not just the data that Matt's platform is collecting, but also the insights that it provides and transparency that it provides the end customer. And some of the algorithms, AI oriented technologies and software that Matt's developing, and recommendation engines that Matt's developing, I think is also very, very, very powerful. And when you can take those large amounts of data, but then layer in automated predictive recommendations for customers, I think that's very interesting and becomes very powerful for the customer base. And I think that's one thing, just to add on to what Tony and Carlos were saying, and Matt, I think is also a fourth leg of the stool, Matt, for you, I suppose. But as far as THL's focus, supply chain logistics is very much a focus for us within our automation fund. We've completed now 15 deals in the broader supply chain ecosystem over the last 2 years, and invested about $2 billion of equity capital into this sector alone, in a combination of robotics businesses, software businesses, and the like, on a global basis. So not just here in North America, but also in Europe. And it's an area that we're going to continue to invest heavily behind because of the mega trends and dynamics in the marketplace. So again, I think whether it's businesses like Matt's or others, I think you're going to continue to see a lot of growth in supply chain automation going forward, because a lot of the challenges that companies are facing, day to day in their businesses.
Absolutely. And just the disruption that we've seen over the last year. I mean, who isn't talking about supply chain right now and all of the challenges that we can solve through tech, AI, and machine learning. But I love that you bring to the table that insights comment, because I think, paired with the data that we're talking about, and we were talking about how the data is really powerful, I think combined with insights and predictive, I think is just taking it to the next level. And, we talk a lot about data and insights, but I think a lot of what's happening in supply chain is also around maximizing productivity. So Tony, Zebra is focused on hardware, mobile solutions, and wearable technology that improves how product is moved through the supply chain. So can you talk about your vision for the future of supply chains and how FourKites is fitting into that strategy? I know you mentioned earlier that you're very, very well aligned, but I want to hear about the future of Zebra and how that is going to manifest.
So it actually goes back to what Matt and Michael both were talking about. It's not just the data, and we say data is the new oil, but I would be thinking, what do you do with the oil? Oil is necessary for plastics. Oil is necessary for, at least to some degree, for cars and trucks to move. So what do I do with the oil? Well, what do I do with the data? And what we do is deliver better insights to the end customer so they can make better decisions and serve customers. It really starts with that end customer who says, I want to know, what I'm getting and when I'm getting it. And it's, what FourKites enables is allowing better customer service, better customer satisfaction, which hopefully ultimately drives revenue, right? And drives profitability. But so I look at what they're providing. I also look at what Zebra's doing. So when you're getting all this data, how do you get it to the person? Well, quite often it's on some kind of device, and hopefully that device is going to be a Zebra device, that a store manager is going to be able to pull up their FourKites app and understand when they're going to get the toilet paper or the vaccine or the Clorox sanitizing wipes. Okay, so how do they get that information real time at their fingertips so they can make better decisions and satisfy customers? So I think of that in the retail environment, but it's the same thing if in a distribution center, or all the way back to raw materials getting into a manufacturing facility. When am I going to get that? So the Zebra device is maybe the device that gets used to capture that information. Mm-hmm. And it's also the device that gets used to report that information to drive tasks. So when you talk about efficiency and productivity, it comes out ultimately as people being involved in these things. And as much as Michael and myself have invested in a bunch of automation companies, the automation is there to augment humans. Okay, and to make humans ultimately more productive to serve customers. And so I look at Zebra as a data capture device, as well as the device that gets used in terms of executing on the tasks and the insights that are provided by the FourKites platform.
Yeah, and coming together just to enhance that customer experience. I talk about this all the time. Customer experience is huge, especially on the last mile of supply chain that works its whole way up through the stream and the supply chain. And it's really important for businesses to be able to enhance their customer experience. And I think, the partnership between the two is really going to just be able to have businesses enhance what they're doing for their customers. So
on
Carlos,
a real-time basis.
Yes, exactly.
On a real-time basis. I think that's one of the differences that we were talking about, the old ERP systems. That gave you some information, but we want to be able to do it with real-time information. And mm-hmm. This enables that.
Well, and think about the difference that's going to make on repeat business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
mm-hmm.
going to be incredible. So Carlos, no one knows IoT and wireless innovation better than Qualcomm. So what role does IoT play in supply chain advancements, and how does Qualcomm plan to work with FourKites to achieve those?
Yes, thank you. Indeed, we have multiple, as I mentioned earlier, we have multiple touch points here. IoT is one, and I'll get back to IoT in a minute. Automotive, we actually have a very large and thriving automotive business, so there's certainly touch points with Volvo here as well. When you think about telematics, right, and those the trucks, and you're tracking them via cellular, so that's one example of being able to get more visibility here. And then what we see is in IoT continues to evolve, right? And the cost to transmit the data continues to drop. So we're now sort of in the 5G era, and the new flavors of IoT will bring down further cost and make the solutions more robust, further democratizing the adoption. One of the things we're excited about with 5G as well is 5G private networks. So when we talked about yard management, the yard, for example, or the warehouse, you'll be able to deploy private networks, which is basically effectively cellular connectivity, which is more robust than Wi-Fi and really lower cost. And you have better quality data, more, So these are multiple areas we hope to work with, Matt and their customers, and find use cases and test beds, basically to deploy these solutions. So there's the IoT angle, again, with the cost coming down and, the cost to transmit the data, the cost to produce the devices overall, which would just further drive the creation of data points, which will go back to Mike's point, right? Further insights. And with all this, again, as Tony mentioned, ultimately what we will see is lower costs, higher return on investment for the customers, right? Which will turn around and bring more profitability and increased revenues. So we're super excited about how IoT, again, is enabling this. And this is, again, Matt talked about ERPs. ERPs were a start. Supply chain management tools were a next step, right? But this is really taking it to the next level and allowing you to have much better visibility, control of your supply chain, and with that flexibility, lower cost, and more dynamic, just overall more dynamic.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And I can see as we move along in this conversation, how we're all connecting the dots and what it means to all of you to be part of this strategic partnership and being part of the evolution of supply chain. And, you can feel it when each one of you is speaking around the passion that you have for this industry and just the excitement that you can see from what's to come because of your strategic visions and what that looks like. So Dan, Volvo Group has said that it wants to have the world's most sustainable in-house logistics systems by 2025. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that look like exactly? And how is FourKites helping to execute that vision?
Absolutely. Well, we want to lead by example to our customers. And it's as simple as that. Sustainability is an important goal and strategic objective for us. Unfortunately, I can't say what that looks like exactly, simply because I don't know what the future looks like. But I can tell you how we see FourKites helping us in that. So I see that in two ways. First, help us better understand the greenhouse gas emissions from our freight activity through FourKites' sustainability dashboard. And that's a great example of how supply chain visibility is just the beginning of many more products that can be deployed, and sustainability dashboard is one of them. And second, it's to help us further optimize our internal logistics by better visibility of our shipments. So if we can improve our internal logistics with better visibility, that means less greenhouse emissions. That's going to be in the ozone. So that's how we see that happening over time.
Amazing. And, sustainability is a huge topic right now. It's top of mind for a lot of companies. And it's really exciting to hear that FourKites is really a driving force when it comes to working with their customers to be able to, reach those sustainability goals. So Matt, can you talk a little bit about what you've been doing on the sustainability front to date? How are you thinking about sustainability and your customers' sustainability goals moving forward?
Absolutely. So given the role that we play in the ecosystem, where we are tracking every single shipment across every different mode, we are collecting a lot of data. So the first order of business is what kind of foundational information can we expose to our customers about the supply chain that has an impact on sustainability? So some examples could be empty miles, right? What is the empty miles in their entire network? What is the actual distance traveled by all their trucks and trains and everything else? Estimated emissions by mode, right? What is the estimated emissions by truckload versus train versus airplane, whatever it is? how much slack is built into their transit times. What we are seeing from our system is almost 40% of the time, there is not enough transit time built into the system, which means trucks approach come at a location. The location is not ready for the pickup or delivery. The trucks end up waiting there, right? So how much slack is built into the system? So these are all the foundational information that we can expose that they can use to make an impact. Now, we also built a few applications that really facilitate collaboration that will bring down the impact of emissions. One good example is what we call a product called Lane Connect. So it essentially allows companies within the FourKites ecosystem to really collaborate and reduce empty miles. A good use case, it's out in the public between Coca-Cola and Land O'Lakes. So they used a private fleet of Coca-Cola. Land O'Lakes used it for the backhaul. So that because of that, the truck didn't have to return empty, right? So that is one example of an application that we built on a network level. The second is what kind of recommendations can we make to reduce emissions? For example, mode switching, right? Can you go from truck to train or train to truck? Can you consolidate orders to ship it in one truck rather than two different trucks? And how can you incorporate actual emissions working with Dan and team into the carrier bidding process, right? If shippers are at a very good place, they have a lot of leverage where they can impact a lot of these downstream emission applications. So can you do that? And how can you provide insights to stops to reduce idle time? When you think about a produce manufacturer or a poultry or meat company, you think about trailers sitting in their yard, with products fully loaded, right? You have to keep the reefer unit up and running. That is causing a lot of emissions. Can you get that trailer out, right, in a timely fashion? So there are lots of things that we can impact that will eventually bring the emission levels down.
Amazing. And, that's a huge part of sustainability goals for a lot of companies, like, Dan was mentioning for Volvo. And I'm excited to see where you go with a lot of those products, just to see how we can reduce those emissions and how we can reach more sustainability goals. So, Mike, I want to go back to you on our point about strategic partnerships. We covered that earlier, and it's clear, obviously, through this discussion that there are so many synergies between FourKites and this tremendous group of investors. So, we don't have a crystal ball, but can you sum up to us why this partnership is really so pivotal for the future of the supply chain industry? And I would assume that it's so pivotal right now as well, just because of all the disruptions that we've seen and what we've been talking about in supply chain over the last year.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think a lot of the things that we talked about on this discussion today were spot on around collaboration, disruption, some of the use cases, et cetera. I think what is, and not to get too far out ahead of ourselves, but I think what is interesting here is if you think about this solution being deployed at scale globally and what that can do from the trickle down effects to the supply chains, I think there's a ton of efficiencies that can be, gained on a global basis, but also it's going to help address some of the significant labor shortages that are only going to continue to be kind of front and center for a lot of companies as we look prospectively because of aging demographics. We've done a lot of work around our supply chain and automation kind of thesis. And one of the biggest things that we come back to consistently is the aging demographics and labor shortage dynamic that's going to happen on a global scale. And if you think about this solution being, again, installed at scale globally, you in theory probably need less trucks, less carriers, less people, and to provide that same amount of productivity output. And that's a good thing because going forward, because of aging demographics, there are less people that are going to be available to actually drive the trucks or man the boats or man the planes. So I think big picture, I think that this solution is so pivotal because as we look forward, it really does solve something that is I think going to continue to be front and center and a very important focus for a lot of companies globally, not just for the folks on this phone, but a lot of Matt's customers and otherwise. And I think that aging demographic and labor shortage dynamic is something that probably doesn't get talked about enough, but is a real challenge that I think all of us are going to face as we as we look out probably 10, 15, 20 years.
Such a great point. And you're right. It doesn't come up all that often in supply chain conversations. So I'm glad that you've brought that to the forefront and given, the audience something to think about when we are thinking about the future of supply chain and the labor force within our industry. So we are going to wind this down and we're going to talk, but I want to finish off by talking about these disruptions. We've seen so many over the last year. I mean, 2020 happened, right? COVID sent supply chains into a tailspin. Coming out of that, paint us a picture of what supply chains look like, or maybe should look like, and how can they better arm themselves to withstand any number of supply chain disruptions? Matt, you've got the last word on this.
Awesome. So when you think about the classic, the textbook supply chain principles, right? Just-in-time manufacturing, lean manufacturing, optimal safety stock, all the different things that we have been taught in the classrooms. I think they are, it's not valid anymore, right? It's not about just-in-time manufacturing. It is not about optimal safety stock. It is not about supply chains operating in silos. That's what it used to be. My supply chain is going to benefit from, right, by finding your supply chain. For example, there were companies that used to find their suppliers. If you don't show up on time, you're going to, get a penalty, 3% of the cost of goods sold. So all those things go away. I think supply chain becomes a team sport. And one thing that, that is going to change is a collaboration between supply chains. People have to exchange data in a real-time fashion. They have to be willing to, share the burden, right, in a collective fashion. It cannot be, right, supply chains operating in a silos. That is the biggest change that we see in the market going to happen. So collaboration, teamwork, and one supply chain operating at a network level rather than operating within the four walls of a company. Those are three big changes that we see happening in the next coming years.
Absolutely. And it's all the things that we have been talking about today in this discussion. And there's certainly some major tailwinds here. I mean, pushing supply chain visibility front and center. Congratulations to you, Matt, on pulling in a group of amazing strategy investors and partners who are all aligned and committed to bringing about the next generation of innovation into the industry. Thank you all for your time today, and I'm looking forward to hearing big things from this group. To learn more about FourKites and its plans for powering the future of digital supply chains, head over to fourkites.com. And thank you to our audience for joining us today.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.